Welcome to Improving Kindergarten Transition Practices for Students with Special Needs. My name is Dr. Sandy Flacke, and I am a 2019 graduate of the University of New England Educational Leadership Doctoral Program. The purpose of this presentation is to share with other scholars transformative research practices that I engaged in, as well as initiate insight and feedback in order to improve my research and communication skills. A little bit about myself. Currently, I am serving as a Special Services Director in 2 school districts in northern Maine, and this fall I will be starting as an adjunct faculty member at the University of Maine at Presque Isle. My professional focus is on early intervention, best practices in special education, and the promotion and implementation of inclusion education. A copy of the entire doctoral dissertation is located at the University of New England Digital UNE, also known as DUNE. If you would like to connect with me professionally, you can email me at sandyflack@gmail.com. And I can also be found on Twitter at Dr. Flack or LinkedIn at Dr. Julia, in parentheses, Sandy Flack. The agenda for the symposium presentation will start with an overview of the study. I will next discuss a review of the methodology. We will then look at the findings and implications. I will then discuss the recommendations and conclusions. And then there will be time for a question and answer at the end. Let me begin by reviewing the evolution of the study. Currently, in the state of Maine, preschool students who are identified with a disability are served through a Maine Department of Education agency called Child Development Services, or CDS. CDS provides identification, case management, and funding for services for children birth through 5 with disabilities. For public pre-K programs, this creates a unique situation. While they are housed and funded by the local school district, the responsibility for providing special education services, including referral, child find, case management, and individual education plan, or IEP, monitoring is the responsibility of CDS. This led to the purpose of the study, which was to provide qualitative information that will inform local, state, and national educational systems regarding improving practices around the transition of students with disabilities from pre-K to kindergarten. This led to the development of the research question regarding students transitioning from pre-K to kindergarten with a lack of early intervention services. This lack of early intervention programming and services for pre-K students in the district led to the development of the following research questions. First, how can a school district improve transition practices that support pre-K children with disabilities entering kindergarten programming? And furthermore, the research will be supported by the following question. How do stakeholders describe their experiences when transitioning pre-K children with disabilities to kindergarten programming? In a review of the literature, the following themes were discovered: parents, children with disabilities, providers in communication, teacher preparation, Maine in early intervention, and district policies. The conceptual framework was developed from the literature on case studies, the lived experiences of external and internal stakeholders, and organizational development. The research site was a rural public school district in Maine. The participants in the study included 3 elementary school principals, 2 Head Start administrators, 5 kindergarten teachers, and 3 pre-K Head Start teachers. The participants were intentionally chosen for their experiences with the transition to kindergarten for students with disabilities within the school district. A review of the data gathering techniques. The qualitative data collection methods were chosen based on the conceptual framework literature, and this researcher used a single site case study method. The semi-structured interview questions were developed to align across all stakeholder groups. The interviews were scheduled with each participant at a location of their choice. The interviews were all recorded with participants' consent. And once the interviews were transcribed, they were uploaded into NVivo. NVivo is a qualitative data analysis computer software package. And finally, a member of each stakeholder group was contacted through email to complete a member check. This researcher chose the Atkinson case study analysis method. The first step of the Atkinson case study analysis method is to create a data repository. The in vivo qualitative data analysis software, as mentioned previously, was selected and utilized as the data repository. The second step of the Atkinson case study analysis method involved an initial round of in vivo coding. In vivo codes are generated from the participant's voice and are applied to relevant information. The third step of the Atkinson case study analysis method involves a second round of in vivo coding where the codes are condensed and reviewed for interpretation. And the fourth step of the Atkinson case study analysis method includes the reflection back on the research questions to support the development of themes, subthemes, and interpretation. Now we will look at the key findings that evolved from the qualitative research. Upon review of the codes, word count, and data from the semi-structured interviews, there were 3 main themes and 9 subthemes that emerged. The first theme that emerged was pre-K improvement practices, with the subthemes of assessment, pre-K teachers, and services in pre-K. The second theme that emerged was public school improvement practices, with subthemes in observations and services in kindergarten. The third theme that emerged was mutual improvement practices, with subthemes in collaboration, communication, parents, and transition meetings. To review once again, this study sought to answer the following research questions. How can a school district improve transition practices that support pre-K children with disabilities entering kindergarten programming in an elementary school setting? In addition, how do stakeholders describe their experiences when transitioning pre-K children with disabilities to kindergarten programming in an elementary school setting? Stakeholders gave voice to both strengths and weaknesses with the practice of transition into kindergarten for students with special needs. The responses from stakeholders were analyzed and interpreted for further implications and recommendations. Now I will review the implications. This study examined the perception of stakeholders in regards to the strengths and barriers to the transition team and the transition process. The results of this study are meaningful and relevant to the school district that was the site of the research, as well as the larger school community in the state of Maine. One of the stakeholder groups is all public school educators. This includes special education teachers, regular education teachers, administrators, and pre-K and Head Start teachers. Another stakeholder group are the State of Maine school leadership stakeholders. This includes MADSEC members, that is the Maine Administrators of Services for Children with Disabilities, the MPA members, that's the Maine Principal Association, and the Maine School Superintendents Association, MSSA. Another stakeholder group is the Maine Department of Education. And within the Maine Department of Education, there are different departments. And stakeholders could include the Special Services Department, CDS, Early Childhood Department, and the Educational Leadership Task Force. Now I will review recommendations for action. The first recommendation for action is the development of an organizational framework to support collaborative pre-K programming. For school districts where the pre-K programs are a collaborative agreement with another agency such as Head Start, having an articulated organizational framework with anticipated outcomes will provide clarity for stakeholders. Anticipated outcomes should include, but are not limited to, collaboration, communication, parent involvement, observations, and assessment. For pre-K programs that are not located within an elementary school, this would include strategies to include pre-K staff, parents, and students within the respective school community. Another recommendation for action is the establishment of a service delivery model for identified pre-K students. There are gaps in the current system for the provision of early intervention services. Presently, CDS is responsible for providing Child Find activities, services, and programming for identified students in the district's pre K program. A formal communication plan regarding the lack of services in the district would initiate a collaborative effort between CDS, Head Start, and the school district to develop a strategic plan to allocate resources and provide services for students identified with special needs. Now we will look at recommendations for further study. The first recommendation for further study is to examine the parent's voice regarding the transition process. There are gaps in the literature regarding parents' perceptions of the transition process, specifically when there has been a lack of early intervention services in preschool. A second recommendation is to further explore the role of the school leader in the transition process, specifically looking at the transition process when the pre K classroom is located in a school building, in contrast to when a pre K classroom is located in a community setting. This would provide further information to support the transition process planning within different pre K settings. A third recommendation is to further look at the transition process in school districts that provide their own pre K programming, in contrast to school districts that collaborate with Head Start or other agencies to provide pre K programming. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the support that I received throughout my doctoral program, including preparing for this symposium. I have included a list of references specific to the information that was shared today during this symposium. A full list of references can be found on my doctoral dissertation, which is located on Dune.